Alright YouTube, so we are back of course to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and today I want to discuss sort of an interesting, I suppose, theory. So recently of course I played back through the game on hard mode, and whenever I was playing back through the game this time I was really focusing in on the game, trying to look for any small details, anything that was interesting or worth talking about, discussing, whatever the case. And through about maybe 90% of my playthrough I was playing with the headset on so that I could really like focus in on the game and kind of immerse myself into like the atmosphere of the game. And for whatever reason, when I got to the end of the game, like Chapter 18, there's one particular, set of dialogue that stuck out to me, for whatever reason, that kind of spun off into, an idea in my head that I wanted to talk about. So this particular piece of dialogue happens within Chapter 18, but it's during, the escape from the Shinner building, so it's a blend of, the end of 17, the beginning of Chapter 18. But whenever our group stops to look back at the Shinner building that it has, the whispers swirling around it, Barrett says an interesting line about how it looks like the building's made of them. And Cloud agrees, yeah.
It's like the whole damn building's made of them.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear going forward that we don't need to take the line of dialogue that Barrett says super literal, as in the building's actually made up of whispers, though you kind of could run with that based on what we're going to talk about. But up until this last time playing through the game, I had never really given that line of dialogue any sort of attention, but for whatever reason, this last time when I had the headset on and was super focused in on the game, and Barrett delivered that line, something clicked in my head that what if that's actually kind of true? What if we are actually in, the fake or copy version of Midgar? And why I say that is because, of course, we walk through this portal into the singularity, and we're seeing, an exact copy of where we just were. You think we're going to walk through this portal, and it's going to be, some crazy dimension or some shit, but it's not. It's just Midgar, right? It's a copy of Midgar. Once we float up in the sky, Cloud's looking down on Midgar, but it's different. It's a different Midgar. It's the Midgar from the original Final Fantasy VII. Now, we did an entire video about this, so we're not going to go, crazy in depth on it, but it's essentially down to the differences between the two Midgars, the remake Midgar versus the one that's in the singularity. Now, this is based on a few things. The Singularity Midgar, the kanji symbols on the reactors are in a dark-colored box, and also the platforms that are out beyond the walls that they're building have nothing on them, which is the exact same as the original FF7's Midgar, whereas the reactors in the remake Midgar don't have the black symbols, and they have stuff built on these platforms. Now, look, I had a 3-minute segment initially after that was kind of comparing the Singularity Midgar to Remake's Midgar and how it compares to OG Midgar. I decided to cut it out of the video. Simply put, there are objectively two different Midgars. One in Singularity, one outside of the Singularity. The one within the Singularity, visually at least, looks like the original FF7 Midgar from PlayStation 1. If you don't believe the two Midgar theory, then I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, there's plenty of evidence that supports there being a second Midgar outside of there objectively being one, but most people write off that stuff to, dev errors, and I'm not going to get into that because it's just a lazy way of thinking. Plus, the backbone of this video and this discussion is about there being two different Midgars. So anyways, the way this idea or theory goes in my head is that, in Chapter 18 we walk through the portal into the Singularity and we're seeing a copy of Midgar. But what if that's not the copy of Midgar? Because it's visually the same as the PlayStation 1 Midgar, right? What if we've been in the copy of Midgar this entire time? Now, the obvious question here is, why is there, a copy of Midgar, or maybe even a copy entirely of Gaia that's within the Singularity, or maybe outside the Singularity, however you want to view this? That's obviously kind of unknown, but there's a lot of unknown questions when it comes to Remake. For one, where and why are the Whispers? Why are they trying to make us follow the path of original FF7? Why is it at all possible for our characters to veer from that path, right? If it's our destiny to do the events of Final Fantasy VII, then why would we even veer from that path anyway? It's like our characters have free will. To me, it feels like, especially with us knowing that this is the 5th part of the compilation, and a lot of us, we can all pretty much agree that this is a sequel, right? It takes place after Advent Children. It feels like somebody recreated FF7. Somebody, I don't know who, Genesis potentially, Sephiroth, maybe Genova, it could be the planet, it could be the Whispers for the planet, I don't know, the goddess Minerva. There's a lot of options here. Somebody seems to have recreated the events of FF7 and are trying to make us go down that same path again, which is why the Whispers are veering us towards that path. But again, our characters keep branching off. To me, what it kind of feels like whenever Sephiroth cuts through the wall of Whispers, on the highway, and our characters go through that portal, it almost feels like to me that we're almost breaking out, breaking free of this, fake Midgar, essentially, and getting back to the real original Midgar. Something we discussed a lot on this channel is the knowledge that Sephiroth and Aerith seem to have, right? And we also get the visions a lot throughout the game. Stuff like Aerith dying, of course, meteor striking the planet, Red 13 and his cubs running towards the, Midgar 500 years in the future or whatever. What if these aren't necessarily visions of the future, though they could still happen in this new, timeline, this recreated FF7? But they're being shown to our characters are remembering them because they're memories from the past, things that have already happened. I mean, for starters, again, the majority of the community agree that this game is a sequel of sorts to Advent Children. Well, if it's a sequel, then that means the events of Final Fantasy VII have already happened. So these aren't necessarily visions of the future. These are past events, things that have already happened. So maybe they're memories for our characters, not visions of the future. And something else that I've not seen anybody else discuss, okay, this game is a sequel to Advent Children. Well, if that's the case, then Aerith is supposed to be dead. So how do you explain Aerith being here during the events of Final Fantasy VII Remake? The only way she can be here if this is a sequel is if she was brought back to life. But if she was brought back to life, then does that mean all of us were brought back to life? Or did our characters like Cloud and Bear and Tifa and all them get transported from wherever they were currently within Gaia to like this recreated Gaia or something like that? I don't know. I don't know how you explain all that because we don't know all the details yet for Remake. What I do know, however, is that if this is the 5th part of the compilation, a follow-up to everything before it, then the only way that Aerith can possibly be here is if she was brought back to life. And Aerith being brought back to life, presumably from the live stream, could explain the knowledge that she has because this has already happened for her. Her knowledge, her memories and stuff would be in the live stream. Her being brought back, these are things that have already happened to her, so on and so forth, right? This explains kind of everything. If potentially Sephiroth brought everybody back, that explained the knowledge that he has, because obviously he never would have forgot the events of FF7, and plus he's come back from the live stream a few times, so this wouldn't even be new, but let's presume that maybe he was brought back to life accidentally or intentionally by the planet, the Whispers, whoever, then he maybe just got back his memories fast as well, just like Aerith. Now what does that mean for all the other characters? I'm not entirely sure, right? This isn't like 100% an airtight theory. This is just something that hit me when I was playing the game the other day, but what I do know is that on this last playthrough with the headset on, super focusing on the game, things just felt a bit different, especially like Cloud's visions that he gets throughout the game. They didn't really feel like visions. A lot of times they felt like memories. Stuff like in Chapter 3, whenever he looks up at the Sector 7 plate, he sees it being destroyed, but it doesn't really make sense why he'd see a vision of that. And it's also the staticky effect that usually happens whenever he's remembering shit. Like whenever Aerith mentions Zack's name in the Sector 6 park, he gets that staticky vision thing. Again, like his memories are being triggered. So it's almost like whenever he looks up at these Sector 7 plays, he's almost triggering his memories, like deja vu or something he's already seen before, and then right after he sees this vision of Sector 7 falling, that's whenever the Whispers intervene. Kind of the same thing whenever they're in the Sector 5 church, Cloud falls down there and meets Aerith, they start talking, she starts mentioning her piece of materia, and then it triggers a vision, or a possible memory for Cloud, of whenever he's seen Aerith die. So as of right now, we don't have an answer for as to why Cloud and people are getting visions of what is supposed to be the future, and we also don't have an answer, of course, for as to why Aerith and Sephiroth have the knowledge that they do. And without really an answer, the only thing that makes sense to me, at least as of right now, is memories. So kind of the TLDR on this discussion, or I hesitate to call it a theory because I don't have all the answers for it, but I don't think any theory out there is 100% accurate anyways. It's the idea of us being trapped within inside of a fake Midgar kind of triggered whenever Barrett said that line within Chapter 18, but also when we pass through the portal and we're seeing what appears to be the original FF7 from PS1 era, it's like, what if this entire time we've been trapped inside this fake Midgar, or maybe we were brought back to life, made to recreate the FF7 story for some reason, but our characters have a little bit of free will, they keep trying to venture from the path, we're getting memories of the things that happened to us in our past. Or maybe our characters that were at least alive within the FF7 compilation still were brought over to this alternate dimension, timeline, whatever. Maybe their memories are erased, and maybe that's why they're getting their memories back piece by piece or something. I don't know. Like some Kingdom Hearts shit. Of course, this is Nomura, and people have chalked up this final chapter 18 with the Whisper Harbinger to being very Kingdom Hearts-esque. So I don't know, man. I think there's something here. I just don't entirely know what it is. But of course, that's why it's a discussion, and I pass it off to you guys. So some of the main talking points here, we talk all the time about this game being some sort of a sequel, right? Some sort of follow-up to everything before it within the compilation. Well, if that is the case, then how do you explain the presence of Aerith? I feel like nobody talks about that. Like, if this is a sequel, she had to have been brought back to life, because she's been dead for most of the compilation. The other talking point, of course, is whether or not we're in a fake Midgar throughout the majority of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Well, there's already a precedent for two Midgars. We walk through the portal into the Singularity, we see another reality, whatever it is, another Midgar. So who's to say that we haven't been in the fake one this entire time? We talk all the time about there being multiple realities, multiple timelines, whatever the case. The Midgar within the Singularity visually looks like the Midgar from the original FF7. Also, something else to take note of is Zack sees the inside of Sector 5 Church with the ending of Integrate, and it has the wooden cross in it. The wooden cross is specifically from OG FF7 Sector 5 Church. That wooden cross does not exist in Remake's Church. So maybe Zack is within the Singularity. Which is something I think people haven't really thought of or talked about yet, is the potential of him being within the Singularity. But lastly, of course, when it comes to the visions we get throughout the game. Now, technically, these are still future visions, given the timeline of the time frame of what we're doing right now within Remake. This haven't happened yet for this timeline, so to speak. But are they actually memories for our characters? A lot to unpack here, my dudes. We could probably talk about more of this. I have a lot of shit written down, but we need to wrap up the video. I think we got a gist of what I was trying to get my point across. I don't know. I'm going a little bit crazy. Been recording this video for a very long time. Your thoughts? Leave them below, my dudes. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Once I did more Final Fantasy 7 Remake content. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter, @DavidYT. I'm a Discord. Links to my networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.